Welcome to the Alchemy of Ascension podcast. I'm your host, Waxéla Sananda, and today we have a new guest to the Alchemy of Ascension. I'm so excited to have her, and I think you will love her too. Her name is Nicole Frolick. Welcome, Nicole.
Oh, Waxela, it's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really happy to have you. And I was just before we started recording, I was just telling the story about how having the podcast for as long as I have now, I have so many people reaching out and their publicists reaching out. Hey, I have a guest for you every day. I get multiples. I'm sure you do too as a
Yeah.
podcast host. And I honestly, about 90% of them I don't feel a good fit. Sometimes I don't even know why. And I saw your material and took one look at your one sheet and I'm like, yep, she's the one. And I don't usually have that reaction. So what I found out is that we have a lot of alignment on a lot of topics, and I think that our audiences will really appreciate each other. And I know that my audience is going to love what you have to share today. So just wanted to open with that. I'll read just a tiny bit about your bio, and then we'll jump in.
Sounds good.
Nicole Frolick is a practical mystic who intuitively coaches, inspires, and guides clients to deep, enduring results. She is an author, speaker, host of the Enlighten Up podcast, the creator of her 8-part vulnerability series, Raw and Real, and leader of her growing community and program, AlcheME. And so, one place I like to start with somebody who's new to the podcast is, most people don't start out on a spiritual journey. Some catalyst has them awaken or leads them there. Do you want to share something about what got you to the point of where you are now?
Yeah, I was one of the early the early birds in when I started. So when I was 17 is when I just started naturally meditating on my own. I didn't even realize I was meditating because I would just naturally slip into these more kind of transcendent states. Whether I was just in the bath or I was just lying on my bed and kind of connecting. So I started meditating early, and I've always been interested in spirituality and alternative health. So health was kind of my catalyst for my first dark night of the soul, so to speak, which happened at the age of 20. And then over the years, I think so it's been an over 25-year journey for me of healing. But it's been in waves, like it's been really intense peaks and then really calm lulls. But I would say the dramatic peak of where I've really taken things to a whole new level has happened since 2016. That's when I think I really started to go through a dramatic awakening. My intuitive gifts really started to come more online. And it's just been one thing after another. Health has definitely, I would say, played a large part of the journey for me in needing to really go deeper into my faith, look at alternative ways to heal things because I don't resonate with the Western medicine philosophy. However, I have also learned in this journey it does play a role and it cannot be dismissed on this journey. And so it's yeah, it's been a lot. I don't even know where to start because there's been so many things. So
Well, let me ask you this. And I did the same thing. I started meditating sort of spontaneously as a child. I used to say the frogs, or I do say the frogs taught me to meditate because I would go frog hunting as a little girl, and you had to be very, very, very still to catch
yes.
a frog. And I would just kind of tune in to that environment below my ankles. And then suddenly a whole world would open up and I'd see them. And it was like a dimensional shift, a reality shift. And nobody outside of myself taught me that. I just learned it with the idea that I wanted to catch frogs. So when you began to spontaneously meditate, what was happening for you? What types of experiences would you have?
I could feel my body vibrating. And I was like, oh, what's this? And I just started to feel like a lot of different tingling and numbness in my body. And I would go other places, but I wouldn't know exactly what was going on or where I was going. It was just, and I also, what I realized is, wow, I'm so at peace. Like this is such a peaceful state of being that I'm kind of attaining or experiencing. And so that was something, meditation has always been something I've loved and enjoyed and made part of my journey. Um, and I will say this, I have a very active pineal gland. I don't know, but I get visions and it's like I see an entire movie playing across the back of my eyelids of things. Just when I go into meditation, I've had so many people tell me when I recount it, especially on my podcast when I've said it, they're like, your meditations sound like acid trips. I at first I was like, is it just my imagination? And I'm like, well, maybe it's part of that, but that imagination is part of the gift. And I mean, it's very Piscean. It's about having no boundaries. And I know that if you can imagine it, it exists somewhere. So that's always been there. I would say though, when it comes to health and also opening up my intuition, the journey did start with health issues in my feminine reproductive area. Um, First with the cervix, and then which was something that eventually led to, I believe, pre-cancer down the road, many years down the road. And I would heal certain things, but then like there were deeper layers that I had to go through that would then start to surface, and the problem would exasperate and it would get worse. And so I think the what I realized is that I had been very heavily in my masculine energy for the first 30 years of my life. I was very much a doer, very much, I needed to control everything. And I was like, I got this. No one saw my emotions. I hid everything from the world in a sense of what was going on deep within me and was the rock for everyone else around me. And I was like, I've got the solution. I've got the solution for you. Don't worry, we're going to fix it. And it wasn't until I was 31 and I quit my job. I took a year off to just backpack by myself. And that's when I started a really deep awakening too, in rediscovering my connection to my own femininity and my own intuition. And so that was a major building block to where I got, because not only did I have to heal my cervix, but I also had to heal my womb space, because I didn't realize until I was 41 that I had encountered sexual trauma at the age of 5 or 6. So that really sparked a massive deep dive and opening to things that I didn't know were possible. And so the the feminine connection was so integral to all the work I do now and everything that I offer. And also just my life getting better and better and better. It seems that the more I connect to my own femininity, those goddess frequencies, it just catapults everything. So yeah, so it's been a lot.
Yeah, thank you for sharing about that. So do you identify as an empath now? Do you find yourself to be empathic?
I am empathic. I don't identify as an empath, and this is
Okay.
going to sound so horrible. And I hope people don't take it the wrong way. And please just allow me a moment to explain myself. Um, it's the lowest form of intuition that we have, and so an empath, a lot of us are empaths. It's the lowest form of intuitive abilities. I've gone way beyond that. And when I say that, is because I know how to master my boundaries. And so I don't worry about being an empath and going into big rooms or big places or anything like that. Yes, I don't want to live in a big city because I just don't like the commotion and the noise and all the heaviness that comes with it. But as you kind of evolve, you begin to realize that it is one of the lowest forms of our own intuitive ability. And so in order to move beyond that, you've got to recognize that your empathy is probably one of your lower forms of gifts that you're meant to master first, so you can start opening up the bigger ones that are going to allow you to really do bigger work in your area.
Wow. Okay. I've never heard anyone say it like that before. And where I was going to go is a lot of times children who are super open and empathic will put boundaries around those abilities to feel
Mm-hmm.
and really kind of shut people out. And that's something I did. I was a feeler, very empathic, and even if you want to call it clairsentient, feeling so much as a child that I didn't like feeling the stuff that I didn't like feeling, and there's a lot of that in the world. So I put really strong boundaries around that gift and around feeling to block other people from hurting me, essentially to be safe, to feel safe. And then as an adult, I had to learn to love my feeling nature again and to love my empathic side. I say that empaths that are super feelers, it's a superpower.
It
And
is.
you know,
It
it's
really is.
it's something that can be so much service, but so misunderstood too, that people don't really, they don't want it a lot of times. And it can feel like a burden because you're literally holding, feel everybody's feelings.
Let me put it this way, and I agree with you. And I was very empathic as a kid, and I did shut everything down because I didn't feel safe in my body. A lot of empaths will shut down their root chakra when they don't feel safe, whether it's physically, emotionally, mentally, sexually. They will shut down their ability to feel and actually get out of their body because their body doesn't feel safe. So it's very, very common, and something I address a lot in inner child healing. But for the best way I can kind of say to the whole empath thing, and I hope no one like takes that as a diss. I don't mean it as a diss. I just think that sometimes people identify with being an empath as like um this I don't know this I don't even know how to say it. But okay, we have a general practitioner doctor, right? And then you have like a heart surgeon or a neurosurgeon. A general practitioner doctor is like the equivalent of an empath compared to all of the psychic skills that you could have or the healing skills that you could have as a person. Your empathy is your building block. It's the beginning phase of like and a lot of people have it naturally. Other people have to really work at it. So if it's your natural ability to be an empath, you already have a very good, strong foundation of the building block that you're meant to build upon. But where you can go with it is so much further than just being an empath. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, yeah, I get where you're coming from. And that does
Mhm.
make sense that it's oftentimes you're not only empathic, you have other spiritual gifts. And I've seen that as true in myself and a lot of people that I'm aware of. So yeah, it can definitely be sort of like that opener, but it can also be something that people are really victimized by. And I think that's the
Totally. And
hurdle
that's
that
why
people,
boundaries are
yeah.
so important. When you learn your boundaries and you learn how to not take on, just because you can take on all the energy around you doesn't mean you should. Right. And so once you really work with that, then you're like, okay, now you're in a much more powerful position and you can start exploring like other things and how to like build upon it and use it to your advantage. Because again, not everyone is naturally empathic. So they have to really work at it, which is kind of a shame in this world.
Well, I think, it's just such an intense world. There's so much coming at us all the time that we want to like not feel. So,
Mhm.
and we're taught not to feel. We're taught not to cry. We're taught not to, be too emotive or dramatic or whatever that is, too
That was
feminine,
me. Yeah.
and then we learn that, oh, well, that stuff's not good. So let's not go there. And then the people that are just so empathic that they have no choice feel, you know,
It's
all the
so
things.
overwhelming,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
overwhelming for some people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be very scary.
It can. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really can. And so I feel for everyone that is in that position, which I know, is part of your work in helping people heal that as well. And I want to talk about what you mentioned are called guardians of the gate. And I think that that has to do with ancestral healing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a couple years ago in a mushroom journey, I was mm, I was working with a guide. Like he decided to guide me on my very first mushroom journey, and I was like, okay, what's holding me back from becoming the greatest version of myself? Like what is it? Because I had been hitting, I'd done a lot. I had moved through, I healed a lot, moved through a lot, and things were growing, but I felt like there was just this constant like wall that I couldn't break through, and I didn't know what it was. And in my mushroom journey, um, it showed me that, okay, so okay, this is how it showed it to me. One, I started seeing the helix of a DNA strand. And in this DNA strand was just kind of moving in this vision. And all of a sudden it was lighting up. And as I got closer and looked into the DNA, I could see all of my ancestral faces in the actual DNA. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And I mean, I saw all the way back to Egypt. Like just it was incredible. I saw Mayan, I saw so much. And then I heard all of these it sounded like almost like a rocket engine, like and I don't know if engine's the right word to use for a rocket ship, but it sounded like that was getting ready to take off. So they were revving up, and I remember lying there like, okay, this is awesome because I've asked like what's holding me back from my greatest potential, and now these rocket ships are about ready to take off. So the mushroom is going to show me exactly where I'm meant to go, right? And so just as takeoff and liftoff was about to happen, all of the engines died. And I'm like, okay, what just happened? Who? And then all of a sudden I hear them rev up again. And then they died. And this continued over and over until I finally said out loud, who keeps hitting the kill switch? And this is when my vision completely changed. And I was in a cave with a massive spider hovering over me, like a spider the size of a building. And this spider was my father.
Mm.
And I was like, and my guide, my friend, he was like, "It's your father?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Are you scared?" I said, "No, the spider's here to keep me safe." And so I said, "But I don't want to be here." And I could see outside of the mouth of the cave, I could see a paradise. I could see beautiful beach gardens and palm trees and hibiscus flowers and a turquoise water in the distance and beautiful breeze. And I just thought, I want to be there. Like, that's where I want to go. Like, that's my paradise. And my dad was just like, no, just stay here. You're safe here. And so what I understood was that my dad had had ancestral trauma as a child. He was his parents immigrated from the Ukraine to Canada, and my grandfather was a farmer. And my grandfather one day decided to make a very risky business investment, and it went sideways, and he lost the entire farm, which means they were homeless. And my dad saw his mom crying on her knees on the floor. And in that moment, I think he was maybe 7 or 8 years old. And he vowed that he would never allow anyone in his family to ever experience something like this again. And so I started to recall moments in my life where every time I would want to go invest money into something that was either going to benefit my future, specifically my business, but even like when I bought my first piece of uh property, like my real estate, I was 27. And my dad and I had a bit of a strenuous relationship at this point. But we were okay. And I just decided I found I found a condo that I wanted to invest in. My sister found out, she's 3 years younger than me. She's like, I want to come look at it with you because I want to also get a property. And so we both went and looked together and we both agreed, yeah, let's get our own place. So she got a unit, I got a unit, and we signed all the documents. And I knew it was in a really up and coming area in downtown Toronto. So when my father found out, because I guess my sister told him, um, he, his response to me was, Nicole, it's one thing for you to ruin your life. It's another thing for you to ruin your sister's. And I was like, what? And at the time, of course, I was so angry and so infuriated. I'm like, how are you well, how, first of all, I didn't force her hand at anything, like it's her decision. And nothing like really made sense to me back then because I didn't know all the information I know now. But understanding that when I looked at the history of my father, and because of his trauma as a child, I remember in the late 80s, my dad's business was booming, like all businesses were, and everyone was in this the stock market was going off like crazy. And then my parents bought their dream home. They built it from the ground up. We all moved in, and within a year, the recession hit, and he had to claim bankruptcy in a couple of years. And so we ended up moving out of that house and having to rent a much smaller house until my dad got on his feet. I remember him making another investment into, like, he bought a condo as an investment property, and he ended up losing money on it. But I remember when he invested in it, even me and my sisters were like, why did you invest there? It wasn't even a good area. And he's like, no, it's a great area. It's a great area. And so he kept reenacting his trauma over and over, right? Because my dad didn't do any of the clearing work that we all know how to do today. And so I found, I should say I did very well on that condo. I told both my sister and I made bank on that condo. So we totally had no similar patterns coming up there. But every time I would go to invest money especially into my business. And my father just loves to be involved in knowing like what's going on. He would always be like, Nicole, what if you lose it all though? Like, should you like, why aren't you just good where you are? Like, aren't you just happy with just like, like, and I had no idea that that was affecting me at the subconscious level of a spider being the size of a building hovering over me. That means that was the power he had in my subconscious mind. And so the mushroom journey showed me how to clear it. So as I started doing more mushroom journeys, they showed me you're going to learn how to clear this without using plant medicine, so that you can teach others how to clear it without plant medicine. So what I realized, my father was the guardian of the gate. So when we understand that our DNA has a chemical mark on our DNA that is passed down through the generations from their trauma, they've seen through epigenetics that there is this chemical mark. That chemical mark is equivalent to the spiritual nature of what I call the guardian of the gate. And so I have realized how to help people actually energetically heal and clear that trauma off their DNA so that we can get rid of that past stuff, and then allows us to go even deeper into the subconscious mind to go into soul fractal healing and inner child work and reclaim all the parts so that you can realign with your purpose, your destiny, and start reclaiming the gifts that have been lost through I guess, the disownment of parts of ourselves from when we were a kid and throughout our life, and basically bring all those gifts back online.
Love it. Yeah. And that's so important because we're not just clearing for ourselves, especially when we've done so much clearing. And we're then clearing for our ancestors and our soul families and our collectives and our galactic families. And it goes on and on and on for, eternity, how much we can serve with those clearings. So I love that
Yeah.
you do that.
And,
Yeah.
and this was the thing is like, I had definitely cleared ancestral trauma from sexual abuse because I didn't realize it, but when I finally told my parents that what I had remembered, I was really scared to tell them, even like in my 40s, when I sat down with them and I didn't know how they were going to receive it, because it was my mom's uncle who had done that to me. And the really beautiful thing was my dad opened up about how he had been molested by two boys, different boys, and when he was I guess a young teenager, like 14, and how that had affected him so deeply. And it was the first time he had ever shared that with anyone. But I didn't realize that it was also in the bloodline, but also then until I healed it, I realized, because I then saw that my mom's uncle, he was abused at a boarding school in India, where he was raised. And I literally heard the chains break on that. But healing that ancestral trauma made sense to me because I experienced it here. But there's things that we have in our DNA, in our trauma line, in our ancestral line, that maybe we haven't even experienced. Like we don't have an actual physical event or something that makes sense to why we have the certain fears or anxieties. And so um, I kind of created this to help people understand the invisible wall that might be there, that is the ancestral trauma that doesn't have an event in your life for you to make sense of, but it did happen and it is affecting you. And so how do we clear that? So it's kind of like the invisible stuff that we don't even know how to tap into.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we know the subconscious is what, 90% of our thoughts and our reactions come from that place where it's not clear, it's not always conscious. So, yeah, it's important to work on those deep levels that we can get past some of these programs and things that we came in with that aren't necessarily for us, but when we know how, they're for us to clear and help our entire families move forward in a clearer way. And all of the human collective, really, and beyond.
No, exactly. I mean, you work at the galactic level, and so you're probably clearing stuff from other lifetimes of other, star systems and planets of like people. And so it's very similar to like what you're doing in that nature.
Well, it is. And I would say, that's kind of my perspective, but it all starts with the embodiment, and our body
Totally.
holds the stars. Our body holds the lineage to the galactics. So whether you identify as a star seed or not, we all have star matter in our DNA, and that's our heritage as humanity. So we're all connected to that. And I just bring awareness of that into my work, but it does all start here and with the
Yes.
heart and with
Yes.
the body, with the embodiment.
This life, this body is the most important part of the whole entire journey.
Yeah, yeah. And how you mentioned in the beginning about empaths closing down the root chakra, not wanting to be in the body because it doesn't feel safe. And I think that's probably where the term woo woo comes from, because
Yeah.
it's really fun then to hang out up
Yeah, I
here
know
and
it
not
is. It's
feel
it's
any of this
it's a
stuff.
blast.
I mean, at
Yeah.
least we think it's fun, but then anytime something happens that we have to feel, we get traumatized or overwhelmed. And
Mhm.
that's not fun. That's because that's the real stuff that we're here for. Of course, we're here to do all of these, multidimensional things if that's what we're called to as well. But we can not do that fully effectively without having a relationship with the embodiment. And,
Don't you find it way more fun to work with that level of stuff when you're embodied?
honestly, I think it makes psychic gifts easier
Mhm.
to work through because I mean, the body's a psychic gift. It's a divine light technology.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. The body is such an incredible psychic gift to us. And I
Yeah,
don't think people realize that, like
yeah,
until like you've started going on your journey. And I understand your audience is a lot more advanced than most. And so, but for anyone out there who might be new, like, yeah, your body is where you want to be building your strongest relationship with.
yeah, yeah. And I think that comes to like not ignoring the whispers that we have in our bodies, not ignoring what we're feeling, really getting curious and going in and experiencing it and getting, intimate with what's happening. Like, what is this about? I like to ask a lot of questions, opening up, taking taboo out of it and that's how we find things like an abuse when we were 5 or, something that happened in childhood that's completely not in our memory in our
Yeah.
conscious memory. It's in our cellular memory, of course. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I love that you're doing that work and sharing about it. And but I do want to go into some more galactic stuff.
Let's do it.
Now
Take me to the stars.
yeah, yeah, of course. We got to go there. So I've heard you talk about working with Pleiadians
Mhm.
and I mean that right there is probably a whole topic and probably lots of other galactics. I've heard just a tiny handful of what you have to share. So maybe let's just start there. What is your relationship to Pleiadians? Is it also other galactics and how do you work with them or in what ways do they inform you?
So, okay, Palladians came to me through a book that was given to me by my naturopath in my early 20s. And she just said to me, I think you need to read this. And so I was like, okay. And I didn't really understand it so much in the sense of where I am now, but the Palladians were the first beings to visit me in the physical, but they came to me in non-corporeal form. So I think it was 2017, and I was feeling really alone. I had been betrayed by two really close people that I had trusted in my life on two separate occasions. And I was at home at my parents' place visiting them up in Canada. And at this point, I was like meditating like 2 hours a day. And at night, I kind of, in my meditation, I was crying and I was just kind of speaking to the Pleiadians. And I'm like, I feel really, really alone and I don't know what to do. And I just feel really alone. And I kind of just need to know I'm not alone right now. And it was a very emotional meditation for me. And so I finished and it was about 10:30 at night. My parents had gone to bed and I walked downstairs to the kitchen. All the lights were out and they have a big, oh, lots of windows and sliding doors out to the big backyard. And so there's the water cooler there. And so I went to the water cooler to get some water. And as I was pouring the water, I heard in my mind, look out the window. And so I looked out the sliding door window and they had a big, big maple tree in their backyard. And I'm just kind of looking at the maple tree and I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if there were like fireflies or something here, you know? And then all of a sudden, this orb, probably this a little bit bigger than the size of a baseball, somewhere between a baseball and a soccer ball, and it was like a light blue kind of color, just darted out of the maple tree, and it darted out, and so it was so distinctly obvious. I was stunned. I'm like, oh my god, what is that? And it was like going out, in, up, down, side, like it was moving in all of these directions that, you know how they say like ships move very differently than how our planes move and stuff, like it's just instant, like the way they can turn on a dime. And so this orb was doing all of that, and instantly I just oh my gosh, it's them, like they're letting me know that they're here. I could feel it in my body, and so I just sat there for like a minute watching it and just like smiling. And that was my first actual like physical encounter. Well, I should say, is that my only physical? It might be the only one I can think of right now. There's been I've had a lot of visual encounters in my mind, but um, from there, I started to expand. And one of the races that has been extremely more prevalent in my journey to date has been the Lyran. The feline beings are so potently strong for me. Um, and so in another mushroom journey, as I was shown how to activate my entire womb space to like open up. Okay, this is gonna sound okay. Let me tell. So in this mushroom journey, I was shown, start with your consciousness at your pineal gland. Take your awareness, drop it all the way down into your heart, and then take it from your heart and drop it all the way into your womb space. And so I was doing that. And then I saw a little tiny version of me floating in my womb space in the eternal waters of the womb. And I could see all of these lit up light language symbols starting to rain down in through the womb and land in the waters. And as they did, like the light infused the waters with all of this high frequency energy. And I was told that these are goddess codes for you. And they're just like, we need you to surrender and let go, just surrender and let go. So I did. And as I fully let go, it was like my womb space became a planetarium and like some gateway opened up and I got a complete opening into the entire universe. And they said, this is how you open your intuition. And now you have access to all the mysteries. Anything you want to know, you can ask. And so I was like, oh, this is cool. And so then the next thing I know, I'm kind of floating through the cosmos and I come across this 14-foot feline being, gorgeous, feminine feline being. And she's standing on a kind of ancient ruins of a platform with like half a wall around her and it's all kind of crumbling and she's standing there. And so I come onto the platform and I'm standing in front of her. And her name, she introduced herself as Niet. And so she's one of my guides. So she's very ties to Egypt. And her eyes were pure white until she started telepathically communicating with me and she started downloading me with all of these codes and information that she's like, you're going to turn this into a course. But as she did that, I saw like vision, like her whole eye turned into almost like a movie. And I saw all these images like going across her eyeballs. And I was just like, oh my gosh, so amazing. And so she has been a very important guide to me. And I believe she's part of the Lyran race. And she came to me in an actual meditation and helped me channel a healing to clear all of the shame out of the sacral chakra so that women could amplify the healing of their womb to eradicate the shame that has been plaguing women for millennia. And not just this lifetime, but all lifetimes. And so she's been a really important guide. I've also had blue people, and I don't even know who they are exactly, where they come from. But they are, I had a lifetime with them and they have like bald heads, but like almost like mohawks going down the back. I just call them the blue people because they're kind of humanoid in a little bit, but they look more like African descent, like African features, very tall, very beautiful. And so that's been kind of, I guess that's a good start. Some of the
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And you know, like a lot of what you're saying, like, oh, me too.
yeah.
You know, like I have connections to some of these beings as well. So I love hearing your stories about them. And you know, something you've kind of alluded to in all of this is that the more you work with them, the more they work with you. And the more you engage, the more present they are. And I've found that, you know, through the years is when you open up to work with galactics, there are so many that are ready to come in and do this work with us.
Yeah, I've got a pretty big team. And I never realized I did because, you know, it's so easy for us to feel alone until we actually are able to tap in. And it's something that just opens up more and more. And then you realize you really aren't alone. You have a crap ton of guides and ancestors really helping you out on this journey. And thank goodness, because it's not easy down here.
So true. So
Yeah.
true. And,
Yeah.
you know, and it's kind of, it's funny because we feel alone a lot, especially people who are really connected to our starseed origins and heritage. It's easy to feel different than the majority aren't, you know, and so it's, you know, sometimes hard to find our soul family while we're here. And there's a lot of loneliness or missing home because home is so much more, it feels better. You know, this is a dense reality that we're in,
Yeah,
and it's a challenge to be here. So loneliness,
it
I think, is a
is.
pervasive thing for people that, are star seeds.
I had another being show up to me in a meditation when I was creating my inner child course, and he was a shorter, like green being, like I would say more forest green kind of skin color, uh, and he had again bald head, but except for at the very top, had this dark long hair that came out almost like in a side ponytail, but it was like really long. But he was super fun and kind of childlike. And he helped me bring energy into my inner child course while I was creating it so that it wasn't so heavy. So that and it just kind of brings some lightness. And also I was doing, you know what it is as you're creating stuff, you're also doing your own healing work. Like it just kind of happens. But that was another being. I don't know what his race is called or anything, but it was really a cute, fun kind of galactic energy.
Oh yeah, I love that. Bringing the lightness in. And the green, he sounds like he could be earthy as well.
Yeah, like almost elemental.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But there's so many, we have names of a tiny handful of the
yeah.
beings that are out there and available. It's really endless. And we don't know all of the stars and all of the origins and all of the names. And that's okay, because there are so many more than what we're aware of. And we shouldn't limit ourselves to only working with ones that we know their names
No, yeah,
or where they came from. So from there, I would love to go into, like, one of the things that I do in my shamanism practice is opening stargates, opening portals, and bringing energies in and allowing energies to go out of this realm or dimension, however you want to look at it. And I heard a podcast that you did where you were talking about in an encounter with the 13th dimension, and I think there might have been a Stargate portal opening in that. I'd love to hear a little bit about that and what your journey opened up for you.
yeah. So, one of the things that's been activated for me, recently, which is it's I've been told, this is what I was told, is that it was a galactic inheritance that was gifted to me because of the healing work I created actually for the generational trauma program that I help people take. Like I took a bunch of people through it and they all like had immense healing. And so this kind of came through on my most recent mushroom journey. And while I was in the journey, I saw in my room, I was like I do a lot of my journeying just on my bed. And I think that's why I go through the dream space before I actually get to the stuff, because I always go back through the dream world because I remember like, oh, I just had that dream or this dream. I'm like, why am I here again? And so um I saw this veil of diamonds pull back. And as this was happening, my hands shoot out from underneath the blanket that I was covered in and kind of cocooned in, and they just started like moving, and all of these like mudras and like just like it's clearing energy, it's pulling in energy, it's drawing energy, it's I don't know what they just were moving so fast and completely not through my will. I mean, I was allowing it to happen. I was fascinated. And so as they're doing this, it's opening up it's pulling the veil back even further. And so the energy, that's the information I was given as all of this is happening, is I had opened up a Stargate that was connected, because first I felt very Egyptian energy coming in, and the it was connected to pharaohs. I don't know exactly. Um, I can't tell you anything more beyond that. It's just that was very prominent, and then I accessed the 13th dimension. What I was told is I'm interacting with the 13th dimension, and my hands are just continuously to move all over the place and doing all of these mudras and drawing all these different symbols into the field. And of course, at this time, with my physical eyes are open. I'm not seeing this in my third eye. This is all with my physical eyes. And I'm seeing all over my hands, like an avatar, neon colored markings, tribal markings and symbols and sigils all down my hands and arms. And I'm sure if I looked in the mirror, I would have seen them on my face, because I did see that once in an ayahuasca journey. And so I'm like, okay, what's going on? And then in the field, I'm seeing all of these sigils and markings and codes all in the field around me. And basically, I was told, because I have a retreat coming up in, well, 2 weeks from when we record this, that I'm going to be utilizing, they said, you've been gifted and there's an intelligence in your hands now that is activated that knows exactly how to open a Stargate through the Sirius system into the 13th dimension that will flood the retreat with source-like energies to amplify everyone's healing journey. And I was like, oh gosh, this is so cool. And so I think what was so cool about it was that I literally, I couldn't stop my hand. I tried to stop my hands. I was like, okay, hold on a second. Just give me a break here. Hold, because like it was exhausting how this went on for hours. And so every time I would try to like just put my hands under, like they just fly out of the blanket and like just start moving all over again. And so, funnily enough, at the last retreat in September, when everyone was in their journey, um, I had tapped into their medicine frequency without being on any plant medicine. And all of a sudden, I felt as high as if I was on like 3 or 4 grams of mushrooms. And my hands just started moving, and I was like, and I was lying on my back again. And just, they started like doing all this stuff. And it happened for about, I know my eyes were closed, and it was just like for 10 or 15 minutes. And then I opened my eyes, and like some of the people who were there on their journey were just kind of watching me, and they're like, oh my God, that's so cool. And I'm like, oh, I didn't realize you guys were out of your journey, like watching. And so they got to witness it. But basically, I was told I had just opened up a portal that allowed for all of them to have easier access to communicate with certain beings. And one of the girls there started to communicate with a masculine being who really fueled her inner child opening. And she went through dramatic transformation there. But I think within this upcoming one, now that I have an even stronger sense of it, um, and now knowing exactly, now this is going to be specific to the 13th dimension, which at the time, I'll be really honest, I didn't know much about the dimensions. I was like, what's the 13th dimension? Like, I don't know. And then I did some research. I'm like, oh, it's the multiverse, it's source energy. I'm like,
Okay, so the reason we just landed here is because while you were telling your story about you had just said opened up a portal to source energy or something to that effect,
yeah.
a gigantic lightning bolt struck outside my house and shut down my internet.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, boom, and I'm like, okay, and then it was gone. So that's what happened on my end. And I know you were probably just sitting there like, I wonder what happened.
I saw you and you were kind of frozen for a sec, and then I was like, and then she's gone. And I'm like,
Yeah,
did she go to the 13th dimension? Like, what just happened?
the Stargate is real.
Because I want to go with her. Wait, bring me with you.
Oh my gosh, that was so wild. And I'm like, no, it was so good. I don't want to stop right now. And I was also remembering, I had a very similar journey, which I won't get into because we're hearing yours, but so similar with all the Syrian and Egyptian energies as well. It just kind of blows my mind how similar some of these journeys can be with the light language hands and all of that.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Like, I didn't realize how powerful our hands can be. Like, I started off as a massage therapist. And so I've always been working with my hands to help others heal and allow the energy to flow through me to help facilitate whatever that person's trying to work with. And but I didn't, and the capabilities of this skin suit are so phenomenal of like what we can actually channel through it. And I say this, I'm getting a download about it right now, is the sensors within our skin have a capacity to transmit the energy into the field far more superior than other necessarily physical beings on other planets. Like there's something very it's related. Okay, it's related. Okay, this actually came a little bit of these details came through. I think I mentioned it on that video that you saw with the 13th dimension. There's something about the water content of our skin that is very important, but it's because of our ability to feel. So let's go all the way back to being an empath and how important it is to be in our bodies with our feelings and to master our empathy to allow it to go to greater levels so that we can activate the sensors in our skin, that when we start doing movements, that the energy starts flowing through in very specific, orchestrated and directed ways to open up the field, communicate with the field. And so one of the things I was told too is your hands are communicating with other dimensions to pull things into this one. And so there's something really beautiful about our hands and probably our feet as well, I would assume. So,
Yeah, yeah. I just have to add to that because this experience that I had was so similar in many ways. It was a medicine journey, interestingly, in Boulder, Colorado, many years
on
ago.
really?
And it was a Luciolite group of
Oh,
people.
yes, I'm very
And
familiar with that.
I work with Luciolite. I have one. So it was
Oh,
all practitioners that were there. And this one woman walked in the door. I had never met her, but I saw her and I got dinged by my Syrian family. They're like, she's soul family. She's one of us. And I'm like, oh, well, cool. And one of the things she said, so we were invited to do, just a very small group of us, there were four of us, were invited to do a cannabis ceremony with a shaman and it was more powerful or as powerful as any psychedelic journey. So, so powerful, beautiful space, beautiful shaman, beautiful plant medicine. And during that ceremony, I did the same thing, went into the whole, the hands, and it was like, I was not controlling my own hands, but I was, like I was there, but I wasn't doing that necessarily. It's like they had their own life. And she had said, this woman that I knew was from Syria, she had said, I want to meet, or I would just want a vision of it, or I want to know where I'm from. And I'm like, well, I know where she's from. I'm going to open a Stargate and pull a vision for her and pull her in so that she can see it. And I did that in that ceremony. I opened it up and she got in to the vision. So we were sharing a journey for a decent part of that time. And then also synchronistically with, well, the Egyptians are also connected to Sirius. There was a point where Isis came through and had a message for one of the people in that ceremony through me. I was channeling Isis and delivered a message that really changed his life as well.
oh,
So
wow.
that's opening that portal, Stargate, and pulling the vision. We can actually pull visions, and of course, all of the healing energy comes through when someone gets to experience that. So I feel it's very similar to what you
Yeah.
were doing, and probably what many of us are doing. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I wanna say for the audience, because I want them to know how valuable they are in the whole experience. When I did my retreat last year, the reason why I was able to slip into the medicine frequency without having to be on the medicine so easily was because of the willingness that everyone around me had been able to let go and allow themselves to be lifted up and into that space. And so it was like they were facilitating and helping me open up more as well as I was opening up something for them. It was a very synergistic thing. It wasn't because I don't ever want people to diminish their own value and what they bring to the table when we do these group works and healings and all that. Much like with you, in your journey and helping the woman who is maybe like facilitating everything and then helping her have a vision, or it's just everyone has so much power held within them. And when we come together in these groups, we have this logarithmic effect on the space where it's not just our energy fields amplifying, by a multiple of however many people there are. It's logarithmic, it's exponential. And so we all come together and we facilitate this for each and every one of us in different ways. So
Yeah,
I think that's important.
absolutely. And everyone plays a role. Everyone plays a role.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And it's just amazing. I love this work. I love this reality more than I've ever loved it before. Which, when you go to all these other places are so cool, but then you're like, but then you get to realize, oh, what can I do here? Like, it's kind of fun, it's just, there's so much potential in each and every one of us to work with this skin suit in so many advanced ways that none of us, I think, when they say like we only use like 5, 6, maybe 7% of our brain if we're lucky, I feel like that's what we're doing with our entire like technology.
yeah. Yeah. And it's, again, it always comes back to like, we're here now. We're in these bodies now. When we're not here, when we're not embodied in this way, we don't have access to this, if you want to call it an avatar or, whatever you want to call it. But this embodiment is so special. And I know so many people that are in my circle and my following that really want to, they desire to get out of body. They want to be
Mhm.
out of their body, or they, kind of romanticize being out of the body, myself included in the
I
past,
used to be the exact same
before I
way.
understood. And yet, like it's so important to just bring awareness back to this is a very special thing. It's temporary. It doesn't last that long in the grand scheme of things. It's just a blip.
Mhm.
And, we can really use these bodies to promote our soul journey and to heal and to serve in a huge way.
Our bodies are the greatest technology on the planet. I'm certain of it. Yeah, we can invent all these things and all that kind of stuff, and it's great. But I just think what we've already been given, the gift of like what Source gave us, there's it's so powerful. And learning to be embodied, like you talk about in like it's Ascension, not ascension. It's
Mhm.
about how it all comes from within us. Yeah, like we are activating, it's all remembrance, but then, like with any journey, we start off very 3D. Some of us maybe we are like really super psychic as kids. There's some of us who are. I wasn't like super psychic as a kid at all. I felt a lot. I definitely felt a lot. But we kind of, and then we get this matrix really dumbs us down and programs us into like being a robot in the society. But then we all start going through our awakening journey, and then of course we're like, no, I want to get out of this reality, I want to get out of this body, I want to go there. And so now the pendulum goes the other way. And so it's natural that the pendulum is going to have to come back into the body to take everything and then integrate it here. It's like within relationships, whether it's with a romantic partner, whether it's with your sister, a cousin, your best friend, like whoever it is, you go into your own internal journey, which is a deep exploration ultimately of the entire universe. And then you explore it with someone else here through the relationship here. And so there's always a need to bring it back into this world and this reality and see what you can do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head when you said when you're going within, we have access to the universe when we go within.
Mhm.
And, people are so used to looking outside of themselves, like this teaching and that technology, but it's really all within us already. And those teachings and technologies just remind us that we
Yeah,
already have it.
yeah. It's pretty powerful, and that's when you start like experiencing miracles.
Mhm.
Like that's when miracles really start to happen. And so, like um two of my guests at the last retreat healed physical things in their body that not Western medicine would say is impossible. One restored their hearing from being almost fully diminished in one ear to fully open, like the next day after the journey. He had all of these celestial beings descend into the room, and he saw them all working on the left side of his head with all of these utensils and tools. He said it was happening so fast he had no idea what they were. And then the next morning he came up to me, he's like, Nikki, I I can hear out of my left ear. And I was like, what?
Wow.
Because he always asked me to talk on his right side so that he could hear me properly. And he's like, I can hear. And he was blown away. And then another woman who was able to talk to the being from that came through that thing, her eyesight had dramatically improved because when she got in her car to drive home back home to Texas, uh, she couldn't see with her glasses on. She put her glasses on to drive, and then she's like, "Oh my God, I can't even see the road." And so she took her glasses off, and she's like, "Well, this is way safer." So she drove home because she could see a lot better. And so she went to her eye doctor, and her eye doctor was floored. She said, "If you could have seen her face, it was like her jaw was to the floor." And she said, "Your eyesight has dramatically improved, where we have to completely change your prescription. Like it's almost not even needing a prescription."
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
And it's like,
Yeah.
that's what we can do when we tap in, but you got to be in your body to do it. And like, I'm sure when you do your work with your clients, whether it's in like retreats or, group work or whatever it is, the first thing you do is you like get them to surrender, to like really drop in, to be
Yeah.
in their body, like to fully let go, to feel as much as they can feel. And then like they're ready for like the galactic experience.
Oh yeah, well, there's a whole bunch of steps before the galactic
Yeah.
experience for sure. It's like, and in shamanism, as I know that the shadow work has to be done.
Mhm.
And I don't want to say necessarily get comfortable, but you accept the dark, you accept the shadow, you accept that we're in duality. And then when it shows up, you know it's part of your journey. It's not something to run the other way. And when you confront it, then that's an opportunity for transformation.
The shadow, it's interesting because the shadow is in the darkness, right? But the darkness isn't all bad. The darkness is, and I think this is where a lot of people misinterpret the shadow work, because hidden within your shadows are also the gems to your purpose, your hidden talents. They're hidden in there too, because they're attached to the parts of you that were disowned through pain or trauma. And so the good and the bad is in the shadow, just as the good and the bad is in the light. I think, it's important for people to never forget that um, there is a downside to the light as well. Like it has to be. If it's within the dark, it's in the light. And it's when we talk about spiritual bypassing, or you can literally be blinded by the light where
Yeah.
you're not wanting to see. So shadow work is scary because of course you're going to be looking at some of the most painful and scary parts of yourself, the parts of you that feel most rejected and unloved and unworthy. But usually attached to all of that are like all of the keys and the gemstones, that unlock your true purpose, your ultimate happiness. And so it's also a little bit of a treasure hunt going into the dark.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's exactly it, excavating for the gold and the diamonds because it's all buried under that dark stuff. And when we pull that out, we have access to so much more of our light. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's a
beautiful.
fun journey.
It is endless fun. I'm on the Gulf Coast of Florida and we are getting a storm. That's why the
Yeah.
light is changing and stuff. And we had that was actually when you said, it was so funny in the timing of it, when you're like source energy and boom, this huge lightning came and the internet shut down. Then that opened up the storm coming. So now the clouds have rolled in and it's raining. So it's likely that we're going to be getting some more
Yes.
lightning. So I want to close now before that next round comes, as the storm is getting more intense. But I've loved this conversation so much, Nicole, and I'd love to let you. Is there any like final thoughts or closing statements or something that you want to leave the audience with?
I'll say that what came to me in my last journey was um, that death is the fertility of your future. And when you allow yourself to go through the death process, what is left over in the ashes will be the fertilizer for your future. And it's all necessary. And so there is nothing ever lost, only transformed, which we all know. And you with your AlcheME podcast, it's perfect. And so don't be afraid to go through the death process, because what comes through there is the fertilizer to your future.
Beautiful. And I have an image of a phoenix. The
Mhm.
phoenix rises up from the ashes.
Yeah.
And yeah, beautiful. That's what we do. Thank you so much for all that you've shared today. I love this conversation, and I feel like we're just getting started, but we'll have
Well, I'm going
to
to have you on my
do it
podcast
again.
and we're going to continue.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I see more for us in the future. So I'm so grateful to have you, Nicole. Thank you for sharing. What is your website or the best place for people to find you?
My website is NicoleFrolick.com, and all my social media handles are Nicole Frolick. So it's super easy. So you can find me there. And yeah, I've got the retreat just in a couple of weeks. I don't know when this is going to come out, but if it's after that, just know I'll also be holding another one in the fall. So if you're interested in taking the journey and doing some very deep healing work that's very transformational, then yeah, I'd love to connect with you.
Wonderful. Thank you for all the work that you do. And I'll be sure to put your links in the show notes. To everyone watching and listening, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you so much. Namaste.